And it was yeah, curious how we start working together, because we met in Sofia with Nicola Zambelli and Fabio Ferrero are the names of these Italian filmmakers, and Fabio is more like a director though. And they were at, I mean, it was 2008, if I remember, yeah, 2007, 2008. And they were based in Sofia at that time, because we're participating in this kind of like Erasmus exchange for, you know, academic students from one country to go to another one and to have.
I think art is a form of expression for an artist. It is so personal, it's inspiring, thought provoking. It's like a language in itself that can be interpreted in so many different ways, and I believe can change lives. I am so in awe of all the artists that I have chatted with in this series, and I have personally learned and gained so much from each conversation. And I hope you do the same. So happy listening. Hi everyone. Today I am in conversation with Galina Dimitrova. Galina is talking to me from Sofia in Bulgaria. Galina is very, very experienced. She's a curator. She is an organizer of cultural projects. She is co-curator and organizer of the DAR Fest International Digital Art Festival since 2009. She's also the co-founder of DAR Lab Foundation, and she's currently working there as a curator and project coordinator. I am so happy to be talking to you today, Galina. And I can't wait for you to share this whole vast experience that you have, and this wonderful journey in the world of being a curator as well as an organizer. So thank you once again for joining me today.
Hello, thank you for the invitation. I'm also very excited to be part of your podcast. You know, when I actually started working, it was a really long time ago, more than 20 years ago. At that time, I was not very aware actually what curator means, because when I graduated, it was in 99 from the National Art Academy in Sofia. I studied art history and theory department. And at that moment, the profession of the curator is not very popular in Bulgaria. And I remember a group of artists who founded one artistic association called Interspace in 98. They invited me in the summer of 99 to be a curator. I mean, to join the team as a curator. And I was really kind of surprised, and I was curious at that one what that mean. So that was my first encounter with with the curators role and occupation.
So I'm going to stop you here because I'm curious to know when you actually agreed to become a part of this art, group, and agreed to be a curator. What was, if you can remember, I know it was a long time ago, but because it was your first experience, it probably stayed with you. So if you can remember what, you went through, and then how did you eventually get an understanding of what it means to be a curator? So was it like on the job learning, or did you do something else?
I remember it actually very clearly, like it was yesterday. It was both, actually. It was both, because most of the new understandings and skills that I gathered at that time was during my work with this collective, and thanks to maybe to the experience of my colleagues at that time. I mean, because some of them were more experienced than me because I was so young, and as I mentioned, my background was more theoretical and historical. I mean, like we didn't actually study contemporary art at that department at the time I was studying. Now it's not like this anymore. I mean, they had some really good contemporary art education, but at that moment it wasn't like this. So yeah, I had to learn from practice, as it is called. But there was also some initiatives, some trainings at that moment. They were organized by Soros Center for Contemporary Arts in Sofia, because I'm not sure if you know about this, but it was very important. The Soros Center role of the contemporary art scene and the contemporary culture as a general in Bulgaria at this time. It was late 90s and the first years of 2000, because I mean, you know, the transition period we were experiencing at that time. I mean, Bulgaria and also the rest of the countries that belong to the ex-socialist bloc. We had to somehow catch up. You know, I mean, to get to know some actual trends and approaches in the artistic scene that were not popular at that time in our context.
So at that time, was it like an underground movement almost with the art?
There were some, yes. Yeah, I mean, there was really a strong distinguish between the mainstream and these new art forms. We could call it underground, but they were more like this independent artistic group that appeared at that moment. I mean, there were the years, that was the years, I mean, that the first non-governmental organization, this NGO, appeared. I mean, Interspace also was part of this process. And therefore, the support from Soros Center and other institutions like this, I mean, private institutions that were based in the country at that time, were very crucial. Because the Ministry of Culture, for instance, were not really supportive in this moment.
Yeah.
Especially for these new artistic forms of, approaches, practices, let's say. Yeah.
So when did the acceptance actually happen? Around what years was that? And so you clearly saw, and you were a part of this transition, right? From it being a collective that was not really acknowledged to becoming mainstream. So was it hard for this kind of recognition, or did it happen very organically? What was some of the sort of interesting changes that you observed, and how?
Well, there were very interesting changes, yes, because I belong to this generation that somehow were part of this really providing the new trends and artistic practices to be accepted and acknowledged in our local cultural scene. But it was very difficult. It was very challenging. At the same time, it was very interesting, very exciting. I mean, these processes were so dynamic, and the scene was very viral. I mean, there
Vibrant.
were so many things, vibrant, of
Yeah.
course. Yeah,
Yeah.
there were so many things going on, especially the first decade of 2000 years. A young generation of artists that appeared, and they were really eager to yeah to do what they find interesting and challenging for them. And there was another interesting point probably that I want to mention, that on one hand, I mean, there were all these as you mentioned, maybe underground also kind of events, but also a lot of events really uh, presenting this new, for our local context, new artistic practices and events and projects going on. And at the same time, more and more international recognition also we experience, because at that time the Eastern Bloc was very interesting to the Western curators and art institutions, and we became quite interesting participants in their forums and projects. So we were quite well presented and welcome to their context. So many of us, I mean, from my generation, we were able to travel and to take part in international festivals, exhibitions, and other kind of forums. And this exchange was very important to us. I mean, that really helped us to learn and to see what's going on in international context, and somehow to bring it back
Bring
to
it
our
back. Yeah.
country.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Interspace, this association I mentioned at the beginning, was a very good example for this, because it was specialized in digital arts and new media arts, as we call it at that time. Now it's just like media art. And it was interesting in this sense that we were not really recognized on the local art scene. Rather, we were more famous internationally. I mean, we were really active in lots of festivals abroad, and we
Okay,
also
so sorry. So
yeah.
Galina, I just want to interrupt you here.
Mhm.
What was the local art scene at the time?
I would say that there were really mixture and eclectic of art that was happening at that time. Really, I mean, lots of different styles or practices were at the same time presented, a living like parallel. Because it's getting more and more complex. It's difficult to answer in one sentence. Late 90s, it was really interesting because you could see really a lot of, let's say, painting, sculptures, or graphic art that was, in a way, yeah, maybe presenting some artistic trends or styles that were also I mean, they started appearing late or mid 80s, late 80s. And I mean, in 90s, they somehow like, yeah, going on in this direction. At the same time, this new generation that I mentioned also brought some new and up-to-date art approaches and practices, let's say. So it was really like a strange mixture. I mean, something that maybe in a more global context was more like out of date, I guess. I mean, because for our local scene, we had to somehow, you know, as I said, catch up. I mean, it took some time. I mean, something that was maybe up to date 1 or 2 decades before was at that time still kind of like
So it's been really interesting talking to you, Galina, and just a little bit about Sofia for people who haven't really had an opportunity to go to Bulgaria. What's the weather like? What is probably the best time in the year to be a visitor to your beautiful country? What kind of I'm sure there's a lot of history. So, outside of Sofia, if you could name a couple of places that would be interesting for visitors.
all right. Well, it can be a lot talking about this, what Sofia is like and what you can see and experience. Because Sofia is a city with really long history.
Yeah.
It was back in the Roman time. I mean, 5th century.
Yeah.
And then and this is really unique that you can see these different layers of the history still preserved and exhibited in the urban environment. And what is the best time of the year? Well, I think it's every time is interesting and nice to be experienced, but maybe springtime and summertime is best because you can stay longer, outside and walk more. And so other places, except the capital that's worth to be seen is the city of Veliko Trnovo, which is the medieval capital. I mean, it was the capital of the Bulgarian kingdom, of the second Bulgarian kingdom back in the 13th, 14th century. And so there is also a lot of history from that time that can be seen, and actually the landscape is really amazing, and the very architectural and this urban say structure of the city is totally unique and breathtaking. So it's really nice place to be seen. Also, of course, Plovdiv, and which is the second biggest city of the country. Again, a lot of history back from the Roman Empire till nowadays. And surely Varna and Burgas, which are the two big cities on the Black Sea coast. They're also very beautiful and very nice to be visited.
Nice. So thank you so much, Galina. So we got a little taste of the art, the culture, and your contribution to being a part of this change, and your experience, a little bit on your experience in filmmaking, and also tips on the places to visit in your beautiful, beautiful country. So thank you so very much. And I really, really enjoyed listening to you. And I'm sure my viewers and listeners will also be able to absorb a lot of what you have talked about. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you also very much. It was a pleasure to talk with you.
For more weekly conversations, do listen to Melting Pot on Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts. Follow us on YouTube and on Instagram at Podcast Melting Pot. So until the next episode, this is Payal signing off.